A new poll out today shows non-presidential candidate Sarah Palin now trailing the actual president by only 5 points in a head-to-head matchup, and tied for third among Republican candidates if both she and Rudy Giuliani were to jump into the race. Still, most Republicans apparently are not ready to go rogue. When asked if they'd like Sarah Palin to run for president, a whopping 72% said absolutely not. Only 24% said yes. So, what does Palin have to say about whether she'll run for president? Cue an appearance on her favourite television network.
I would say by November you got to make a decision, though, right?
You do. I mean, legally you do, because you have to start getting your ducks lined up to have your name on these ballots, whether we are candidates or whether we are supporters of the right candidacies. We're going to be out there working so hard in these next 14 months, but a lot is going to happen in these next 14 months. Mark my word, it is going to be an unconventional type of election process.
Wow, that was Sarah Palin giving her first interview since publication of a controversial new book, The Rogue, Searching for the Real Sarah Palin. Of course, since the author of that book doesn't work for Fox News, not a single question was asked about it. But there's plenty to get your teeth into, including allegations that she once snorted cocaine and had a one-night stand with a former basketball player. And joining us now is the author of the book in question, Joe McGuinness. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening.
Congratulations. You have single-handedly managed to persuade a number of Americans no longer to loathe Sarah Palin, but to like her. Even the New York Times says, although most of The Rogue is dated, petty and easily available to anyone with internet access, Mr. McGuinness used his time in Alaska to chase caustic, unsubstantiated gossip about the Palins, often from unnamed sources like, quotes, one resident and a friend. And these stories need not to be consistent. Is that fair?
No, it's not fair. Janet didn't like the book. That's pretty obvious. But when you say the New York Times, I wish you would also read something from the article that Sam Tannenhouse, the Sunday Times book editor, wrote last Sunday in the front page of the Sunday Review section, because he felt very differently about it. You try to pick out the worst paragraph of the worst review by anybody who's yet read the book and lead off the interview like that, and I don't think that's fair either.
In the book, you say, while Sarah Palin was a sports reporter in Alaska, she had a one-night stand with a then NBA star-to-be, Glenn Rice. But she wasn't married at the time, so why did you include that?
Well, let me tell you why. That's a good question. That's a fair question, okay? The story that I first heard was that Sarah had had a sexual encounter with a black athlete from the University of Alaska, and that she had been so traumatized by this experience that people of color made her uncomfortable forever after. And it is a fact, and I write this in The Rogue, that when she became governor, one of her first acts, when she saw that there were people of color working in the state office building, she told her chief of staff to fire them because seeing so many black faces around made her uncomfortable.
Would you have included that story if it was a white basketball player?
Let me finish.
Joe, would you have included that story if it was a white basketball player?
The point is about racism. The point is about racism. And the point is, and this is the key point, which I'll get to very quickly, it is that the story turned out to be wrong. She didn't have a bad reaction. I spent months and finally found the individual in question, who was Glenn Rice. When I talked to Glenn Rice, he said, no, it was nothing like that at all. And if you read the book, you'll see that he has only good things to say about Sarah Palin. So I put that in there to counter the allegation that others were making that this was the cause of her ongoing racism. I do believe she's a racist. She married a racist bully in Todd Palin. When Todd was in 12th grade at Wasilla High School, he and two buddies took a 7th grade black boy out to a rock quarry behind the high school and just beat him up just because he was black. That's the man she chose for her husband.
You said on the Today Show that at best Sarah Palin is a hypocrite. At worst, she's a vindictive hypocrite. Why?
Why? Her hypocrisy in pretending that she's a practicing Christian family values, a mother of a large, close family, is belied by the facts of the past 20 years when her children were growing up. I have example after example after example of the fact that she and her husband Todd have never been close and are always on the verge of divorce, that she was never a caregiver to her children, and that her Christianity, while I do believe she wants America to be a Christian republic, is not something she practices in a way that the right wing thinks she does.
Joe McGuinness, author of The Rogue, thanks so much for joining us this evening.